For 8 weeks, Sarah Mitchell watched a teenage girl meet a well-dressed man at the same diner booth. Gifts getting bigger. Secrets getting deeper. Excitement about a modeling career that didn't exist. When Sarah saw the plane ticket and cash, she had 6 hours to convince the girl's father, a Hells Angels president, his daughter was walking into a trap. What happened next mobilized 200 bikers and exposed a network that had stolen 47 lives. Before we continue, this story only happened because one person paid attention. Not police, not teachers, not family. A waitress who noticed a pattern for 8 weeks and refused to look away. Subscribe because these stories need to be told. Awareness saves lives. In the comments, what warning signs have you learned to watch for in your community? Let's educate each other. Together, we protect our neighborhoods. I knew what I was seeing. God help me, I knew exactly what I was seeing and I almost didn't say anything. Sarah Mitchell's hands shook as she poured coffee into the mug of the man sitting alone at the counter. The man whose daughter had no idea she had 6 hours left before she disappeared forever. It was 7:30 on a Friday morning at the Highway 99 diner, the kind of place where truckers mixed with locals, and the coffee was always hot and never quite good enough. Sarah had worked there for 7 years, long enough to know every regular by name, long enough to recognize patterns that others missed. The man at the counter was Axel Reeves. Everyone called him Reaper. He was 6'3", bald by choice, with a beard that had started going gray at the temples and tattoos covering both arms like sleeves of ink and memory. The leather vest he wore carried patches that told stories. A president's rocker for the Fresno chapter of the Hells Angels, military insignia from tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And near his heart, in careful script, his daughter's name, Lily. He looked up as Sarah filled his mug. "Morning, Sarah. Just the coffee today, Black." Her hand was shaking so badly that coffee slopped over the rim onto the counter. Axel reached for a napkin, his expression shifting from his usual tired politeness to something more alert. "You okay?" Sarah set the pot down. Her throat felt tight. She'd practiced this moment in her head for 3 days, ever since she'd seen the plane ticket. But now that it was here, the words felt impossible. Because what she was about to say would either save a life or destroy her own. She had 2 kids at home, Emma and Tyler, 8 and 5. She needed this job. She couldn't afford to make enemies, especially not enemies who wore patches and rode motorcycles, but she couldn't afford to stay silent either. "Mr. Reeves," she said quietly, her voice barely steady, "I need to talk to you about Lily." Axel's entire body went still. His eyes, dark brown and suddenly intense, locked on hers. "What about Lily?" Sarah glanced around the diner. 3 tables occupied, none paying attention. She leaned closer, her voice dropping even lower. "I think your daughter is being groomed by a human trafficker. And if I'm right, she's supposed to get on a plane today. One-way ticket to what he's told her is New York City for a modeling shoot. If she gets on that plane, Mr. Reeves, you'll never see her again." The silence that followed lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like hours. Axel's face didn't change. He had the kind of face that didn't give much away, trained by combat and loss to stay controlled. But his hand on the counter curled slowly into a fist. "Explain." So Sarah did. She pulled out her phone and opened the photos she'd been taking for 8 weeks. Photos she'd snapped carefully from behind the counter or through the kitchen window, documenting something she prayed she was wrong about, but knew in her bones she wasn't. This man. She showed Axel the first photo, dated 8 weeks earlier. A man in his mid-40s, well-dressed in a blazer and expensive jeans, sitting across from Lily in a booth near the window. Lily's face in the photo was bright, eager, listening. He started coming in with Lily every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon around 4:30. She told me once, when I asked, that he was a modeling scout, said he'd approached her at the mall, told her she had the look agencies want. Axel stared at the photo. His jaw worked, but he didn't interrupt. At first I thought, okay, maybe he's legitimate, but then I started noticing things. Sarah swiped to the next photo. Week 3. See what he's doing? He's taking pictures of her with a professional camera. But look at the background, Mr. Reeves. He's shooting photos in a diner. Real modeling scouts use studios. They don't pose girls in public places. Another swipe. Week 5. Lily brought a friend once. See his face here? He sent the friend away. Told her this was business, not social. Isolation tactic. Swipe. Week 7. That's when I saw the gifts. First it was small things. Coffee gift cards, nail polish. Then it got bigger. She showed me a new phone once, said he gave it to her because agencies need to be able to reach their talent anytime. That's not how it works, Mr. Reeves. That's control. Her voice caught. She looked down at her phone, at the next photo dated just 2 days ago. Thursday afternoon. The envelope on the table, the edge of a plane ticket visible. Thursday, I saw him give her this. It's a plane ticket and cash. $500, he told her, for expenses in New York. The flight leaves today at 3 p.m. I heard him tell her to be ready, that someone from the agency would pick her up. He told her not to tell you until after she landed, said you wouldn't understand the industry. Axel's breathing had changed. Sarah could hear it, slow and controlled, the way someone breathes when they're trying very hard not to break something. How do you know he's a trafficker? His voice was quiet, dangerous in its calmness. How do you know this isn't real? Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a worn photograph, its edges soft from years of touching. A girl, 16 years old, blonde hair and a smile that lit up the frame. Because this is my sister Amy. 9 years ago, when she was 16, a man approached her at the fashion fair mall, told her she could be a model, showed her a portfolio, gave her gifts, took photos in public places, gave her a plane ticket to New York for a photo shoot. Sarah's voice broke. She got on that plane in June 2015. We found her body in a Las Vegas hotel room 3 years later. Overdose. The traffickers had been forcing drugs on her to keep her compliant. She looked up at Axel, and now the tears did fall. Mr. Reeves, I've been watching this man groom your daughter using the exact same playbook that was used on Amy. Every single tactic. The compliments, the gifts, the isolation from friends, the secrecy, the one-way ticket, the cash to create obligation. I've been documenting it because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. But I've been terrified to say anything because what if I'm wrong? What if I ruin some girl's legitimate dream? What if you don't believe me? She set the photo of Amy on the counter between them. But yesterday, I realized if someone had told my parents what they were seeing with Amy, if someone had spoken up even though they were scared, my sister would still be alive. So I'm speaking up. I know it sounds crazy. I know you barely know me. But please, Mr. Reeves, check your daughter's room. Check her phone. Ask her where she's going today. Because if she gets in a car with that man, she won't be going to New York. And you'll spend the rest of your life searching for her the way my family searched for Amy. Axel picked up the photo of Amy, studied it. When he looked back at Sarah, something had shifted in his expression. Not anger, something colder and more focused. Where is Lily right now? I don't know. But according to the conversations I overheard, he's picking her up at 1 p.m., behind the old Belmont Theater on the east side. That gives you... Sarah checked her watch. 5.5 hours. Axel stood up. He pulled out his wallet, dropped a $100 bill on the counter. That's for the coffee, and for having the guts to tell me. He picked up the photo of Amy, looked at it again, then handed it back carefully. I'm sorry about your sister. And thank you. You just saved my daughter's life. He turned toward the door, already pulling out his phone. Mr. Reeves? Sarah called after him. He stopped, looked back. There's something else. When I looked up trafficking patterns after Amy died, I learned that these men don't work alone. There's usually a network. If he's been grooming Lily, he's probably grooming other girls too. And somewhere there's a place where they take them. A warehouse or a house where they hold them before selling them. Axel's expression went very, very still. How many girls? I don't know. But if you find him, if you can get access to his phone or his records, you might be able to find them. You might be able to save more than just Lily. Axel nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then he was gone, the diner door swinging shut behind him, the rumble of a motorcycle starting up in the parking lot 30 seconds later. Sarah stood behind the counter, shaking. She picked up Amy's photo, pressed it to her chest. I did it, Amy, she whispered. I spoke up. Please, God, let me be right. Let her be okay. Across town, Axel Reeves was already making calls. The first call went to a man named Dominic Vance, whose road name was Ghost. Ghost was 54, former FBI, 20 years in their trafficking unit before he'd retired and joined the club. If anyone would know how to verify Sarah's story fast, it was him. Ghost, it's Reaper. I need you at the clubhouse, now. Emergency church. Church was what the club called their meetings, the ones where votes were taken and decisions were made. We've got a situation involving Lily. The second call went to a younger member, Kevin Park, who rode under the name Tech. Kevin was 31, worked in cybersecurity, could hack his way into systems that most people didn't even know existed. Tech, clubhouse, now. Bring your laptop. I need someone's entire digital life exposed in the next 3 hours. The third call, and this one hurt, was to his daughter. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Axel's hand tightened on the phone. Lily, it's Dad. Call me back as soon as you get this. I don't care what you're doing, where you are, or who you're with. Call me, now. He sent a text. Lily, call me. Urgent. Then he checked, Find my iPhone. Lily's location showed her phone was at home. But Lily wasn't at home. She'd told him she was staying over at a friend's house last night, would be at school today. So either her phone was at home, and she wasn't, or she'd turned off location services. Or someone had told her to turn off her phone. Axel pulled into the Hells Angels clubhouse parking lot at 8:15 a.m. By 8:30, 40 members had arrived, dropping whatever they'd been doing to answer the emergency call. By 9 a.m., the count was up to 180, brothers from all over Northern California rolling in, because when your president said emergency and my daughter in the same sentence, you came. They gathered in the main hall, a large room with a bar at one end, a long table at the other, and patches and photos covering the walls. Memories of brothers who'd ridden before, battles fought, roads traveled. Axel stood at the head of the table. Spread out in front of him were the photos Sarah had taken, her phone with the evidence, and the picture of Amy Mitchell. "Brothers," he said, and the room went silent. I learned something this morning that I'm going to need help with, and I'm going to need it fast. He laid out everything Sarah had told him. The 8 weeks of grooming, the gifts, the isolation, the one-way ticket, the cash, the pickup location at 1 p.m., the possibility of a trafficking network, of other girls held somewhere, waiting to be sold. When he finished, the room stayed silent for maybe 5 seconds. Then a man stood up. Thomas Brennan, road name Judge, 58 years old, former prosecutor before he'd burned out and walked away from a system that protected the guilty more often than the innocent. Reaper, I can get FBI trafficking unit on the phone in 10 minutes. This is their jurisdiction, and they've been hunting networks like this for years. If we hand them this evidence, how long will it take them to move? Axel cut in. Judge hesitated. With proper warrants, coordinating with local PD, best case, 6 hours. More likely 8 to 12. Lily's pickup is in 4.5 hours. The silence that followed that statement was heavy. Ghost stood up. Then we move faster than the system. I'll verify the waitress's story, run background on the scout, see if I can ID him. If he's in any trafficking database, I'll find him. Tech raised his hand. If you can get me his license plate, I can hack his phone, his email, his cloud storage. If there are other girls, if there's a location, I'll find it. A man near the back spoke up. Jake Wilson, called Tracker. 45, ex-Army Ranger, could find anyone anywhere. I can locate Lily's phone even if she turned it off. If she's got it with her, I'll ping the last tower, narrow it down to a few blocks. Axel looked around the room at the 180 men watching him. Men who'd fought beside him, bled beside him, trusted him to lead them. Men who were now offering to fight for his daughter. I need a vote, he said quietly. This isn't club business in the traditional sense. This is my daughter. But if Sarah's right, if this man is part of a network, then we're not just saving Lily. We're saving every girl he's grooming, every girl he's already taken. So I'm asking, do we ride on this? Judge stood again. Legal perspective. If we find evidence of a crime in progress, especially involving minors, we're obligated to report it. But nothing says we can't investigate first, gather that evidence. As long as we bring in the authorities before we do anything that crosses a line, we're clean. Doc, the oldest member present at 62, raised his hand. William Hayes, combat medic in Vietnam, had seen more horror than most men could imagine and come out the other side still believing in protecting the innocent. If we find girls who've been held captive, they're going to need immediate medical attention. I can coordinate with trauma specialists, have an ambulance on standby. Axel looked at his vice president, a man named Marcus Stone, who rode as Hammer. Marcus was 49, had 2 daughters of his own, and there was a fury in his eyes that Axel recognized because he felt it in his own chest. Brother, Marcus said, we don't even need a vote on this. But we'll take one anyway because that's how we do things. All in favor of finding this piece of shit and making sure Lily and every other girl out there gets home safe? Silence fell again. Axel looked around the table. Then, slowly, deliberately, every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single dissenting voice. 180 men voting unanimously to help a woman and child they'd never met. Unanimous, Axel said, his voice rough. Thank you, brothers. Now let's get to work. We've got 4 hours to find my daughter and end a trafficker's career. Ghost, Tech, Tracker, you're with me. Judge, get the FBI on standby, but don't give them details yet. Doc, coordinate medical support. Hammer, organize the brothers into search teams. If we need to cover every block of Fresno to find Lily, we will. The room exploded into motion. Men pulling out phones, firing up laptops, spreading maps across tables. This was what the Hells Angels had always been underneath the leather and the reputation. Men who stood up when someone needed protection, who answered the call when evil thought it could operate in the shadows. And Axel Reeves, watching his brothers mobilize with military precision, felt something shift inside him. For 6 years, since his wife Jennifer had died, he'd been terrified of losing Lily too. He'd taught her self-defense, given her pepper spray, tracked her phone, tried to protect her from every physical danger he could imagine. But he'd never considered this kind of danger. The kind that wore a friendly face and made promises. The kind that didn't break down doors but instead walked right through them because nobody was watching for it. Sarah had been watching. A single mother working double shifts, a woman who'd lost her sister to the same evil, had paid attention when no one else did. And now, because she'd found the courage to speak up even though her voice shook, Lily had a chance. 4 hours. They had 4 hours to turn a waitress's terrible suspicion into a rescue that would reverberate far beyond one 14-year-old girl. Ghost walked over to Axel, laptop already open. I ran the photos through facial recognition software. Got a hit. Your modeling scout is Viktor Sokolov, 47, Russian national, on the FBI watch list for suspected involvement in human trafficking. Linked to 11 missing girls across California, Nevada, and Arizona over the past 8 years. Axel felt ice settle into his veins. 11. That they know of, Ghost said grimly. Tech's working on hacking his phone now. If we can get into his cloud backup, we'll have everything. Texts, photos, location history, the works. Tech called from across the room. Got his license plate from the diner's parking lot security footage. Running it now. Should have access to his phone in 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Then they'd know where Victor kept his other victims. Then they'd know if Sarah's worst fears were accurate. But first, they had to find Lily. Tracker appeared with a tablet showing a map. Lily's phone last pinged off a tower near the high school at 10:45 this morning. Then it went dark. Either she turned it off or someone had her turn it off. She's absent from school today, Axel said, checking the email he'd just received from the attendance office. Told them she had a doctor's appointment. So she's somewhere between the school and the Belmont Theater, Tracker said, zooming in on the map. If he's picking her up at 1 p.m., where would she be right now? The answer came from the most unlikely source, a younger club member, barely 25, who went by Wrench because he could fix anything mechanical. He'd been quiet throughout the meeting, but now he raised his hand tentatively. Reaper, sir, I follow Lily on Instagram. She posted a story 2 hours ago, showed her getting coffee at that place on Shaw Avenue, said she was preparing for the biggest day of her life. Had a countdown sticker, said, 3 hours until NYC. Every head turned toward Wrench. Axel crossed the room in 3 strides. Show me. Wrench pulled out his phone, opened Instagram, showed the story. There was Lily, his beautiful daughter, holding a coffee cup, her face glowing with excitement. The background showed a coffee shop Axel recognized, the one near the mall. And there, in the corner of the frame, was the countdown. 3 o'clock and a quo, ticking down. Posted 2 hours ago, which meant she currently had 1 hour on that countdown. 1 hour until she thought she was leaving for New York. 1 hour until Viktor Sokolov would pick her up and take her somewhere that no father should have to imagine. She's still at the coffee shop or nearby, Axel said. Tracker, take a team. Find her. Keep eyes on her, but don't approach. I don't want to spook Victor into changing plans. We need to let him think everything's going according to schedule, right up until it isn't. Tracker nodded, grabbed 6 members, and headed out. Tech shouted from his laptop. I'm in! I'm in Victor's phone. Holy shit, Reaper, you need to see this. Everyone crowded around Tech's screen. What they saw made several men curse under their breath. Ghost, who'd seen some of the worst humanity had to offer during his FBI years, went pale. Victor's phone contained folders. 12 folders, each labeled with a girl's name. Each folder contained photos, surveillance photos taken without the girls knowing, grooming photos taken during portfolio shoots, and in some cases, documents, travel arrangements, payment records. And in one folder labeled California Operation, there was an address. An industrial address in Bakersfield, 90 miles south. An old textile warehouse that had been abandoned for years. That's where he's keeping them, Ghost said quietly. That's the holding location. Tech clicked through Victor's messages. There were conversations with handlers, with transporters, with buyers. The scale of the operation was staggering. And at the bottom of one message thread sent just yesterday was a shipping manifest for tonight. 8 girls, ages 13 to 19, scheduled for international transport at 11 p.m., which meant that if they didn't move fast, 8 girls would be sold to buyers overseas and vanish forever into networks that spanned continents. How many girls are at that warehouse right now? Axel asked, his voice deadly calm. Tech scrolled through documents. According to this intake log, 23, ages 13 to 19, from 6 different states. Some have been there 2 weeks. Some have been there over a year. 23 girls. 23 families somewhere who'd filed missing person reports that went nowhere, who'd been told their daughters were runaways, who'd been searching and hoping and slowly dying inside. And tonight, 8 more would be lost forever. Judge was already on the phone with the FBI. Agent Chen, this is Thomas Brennan, former district attorney, representing the Hells Angels. Don't hang up. Brennan? Her voice crackled with static and irritation. You've got 10 seconds before I trace this call and flag it for obstruction. We have actionable intel on the Zakharov trafficking network, specifically a target named Viktor Sokolov. Silence stretched on the line, then the rustle of papers. We've been building a RICO case against Zakharov for 6 years, Chen said. If you're playing games, he has my daughter, Agent. Axel's voice cut in, low and tight. Who is this? The father. Sokolov is picking her up in 1 hour and 50 minutes. We have his phone cloned. We have the warehouse location in Bakersfield. We have the manifest for the girls shipping out tonight. Listen to me, Chen said sharply. If you have evidence, you surrender it to the Fresno field office immediately. Do not, I repeat, do not engage. If you compromise my investigation, your investigation has taken 6 years. My daughter has less than 2 hours. Axel wasn't shouting, but the intensity made the phone feel heavy. I'm sending you the files now, but understand this. I am going to that pickup. Absolutely not. I will have a SWAT team arrest you the second you step on that lot. This is a federal operation, not a biker brawl. Chen, it's Dominic Vance. Ghost stepped closer to the phone. Dead silence on the line. Then, disbelievingly, Ghost? I heard you were dead, or worse, riding a Harley. Still breathing, Ghost said. Listen, Sarah, you know I don't vouch for people lightly. This club, they're disciplined. They aren't going there to crack skulls, they're going there to witness. But the father will be there. You can either fight us and let Sokolov slip, or you can use us as your perimeter. You're asking me to sanction a gang presence at a federal takedown. I'm asking you to let a father see his daughter safe. Put him in the back. Handcuff him to the van if you have to. But let him be there. A long, heavy exhale came through the speaker. If one of your men crosses the line, if one hair on Sokolov's head gets ruffled before we process him, I will bury you all under so many federal charges you won't see sunlight until the next century." "Understood," Axel said. "Send the data, and stay the hell out of my line of fire." At 12:15 p.m., 40 Hells Angels motorcycles pulled into a staging area 3 blocks from the old Belmont Theater. They didn't arrive like a storm. They arrived like a military operation. Engines cut almost in unison, the sudden silence after all that rumble feeling heavy and expectant. 4 unmarked FBI vehicles were already there, agents in tactical gear checking equipment with practiced efficiency. Agent Sarah Chen stepped out of the lead vehicle. She was 41, Korean-American, had 12 years with the trafficking task force, and eyes that had seen too much evil to be surprised by anything anymore. She walked straight to Axel. "Reeves?" "Agent Chen." "I've got 40 bikers sitting on their hogs 3 blocks from a federal crime scene," she said, her voice cold and professional. "You realize how this looks? They're just parking, Agent. Public street." "Don't get cute. I've reviewed the data you sent. It's solid. It's the only reason you aren't in cuffs right now." She stepped closer. "Here are the rules of engagement. My team initiates. My team breaches. My team secures the suspect." "And my daughter?" Axel asked. "We intercept Sokolov before she gets in the car. But we need her to approach him. We need the intent to transport for the trafficking charge to stick." Axel's jaw tightened. "You want to use her as bait?" "I want to put him away for life," Chen shot back. "If we grab him too early, a good lawyer walks him on a misunderstood conversation. She walks to the car. We take him down. You stay behind the tactical line." "If he touches her." "If he touches her, my snipers will end it. But if you move, my agents will drop you. Do we have an understanding?" A long pause hung between them, heavy with the weight of a father's terror. "Just get her home," Axel finally said. Chen turned to Dominic. "Ghost, keep your boys on a short leash." "They know the drill," Ghost said. "Eyes open, mouths shut. Let's move." At 12:30, they moved into position. The Belmont Theater had been closed for 6 years, its parking lot cracked and weed-filled, the perfect isolated spot for a pickup that nobody would witness. FBI agents took positions behind old dumpsters, in doorways of neighboring buildings, 2 on the roof with sniper rifles they wouldn't need but had ready anyway. The bikers spread out in a loose perimeter, motorcycles parked out of sight, men positioned where they could see but wouldn't be seen. Watching. Waiting. At 12:47, Victor's car pulled into the lot. A silver sedan, expensive, leased under a fake name. He parked in the center of the empty lot, engine running, ready for a quick exit once he had the girl. Axel watched from behind an FBI van, binoculars in hand, Ghost beside him, listening to tactical radio chatter. His heart was hammering, but his hands were steady. 6 years of being a single father, 6 years of trying to keep Lily safe, and he'd never imagined the danger could look like this. Like a well-dressed man in a nice car offering dreams. At 12:53, Lily appeared. She walked across the parking lot from the street entrance, a backpack slung over one shoulder, wearing new clothes, designer jeans, a crop top Axel had never seen before, makeup that made her look years older. She was smiling, that bright, excited smile that used to appear on Christmas mornings and birthday parties, and Axel felt something crack inside his chest, because she had no idea that she was walking toward a nightmare disguised as a dream. Victor got out of the car. He was smiling too, warm and paternal, the mask he'd perfected over 20 years and 63 victims. "Ready for your big adventure?" Lily's voice carried across the empty lot, high with excitement. "Yes, I can't believe this is really happening. I'm going to New York." "You sure are," Victor said, opening the passenger door. "Your whole life's about to change, sweetheart. Everything you've dreamed about." Lily moved toward the car. 3 steps away. 2 steps. Axel's entire body tensed, every instinct screaming at him to run to her, to grab her, to put himself between his daughter and that predator. But Agent Chen's voice came through the radio. "Hold position. Let her get close. We need the attempt." 1 step away. Lily reached for the door handle. "Lily Reeves, step away from the vehicle!" Chen's voice, amplified through a bullhorn, shattered the afternoon quiet. "FBI! Hands where we can see them!" Everything happened in about 4 seconds. Lily froze, her hand on the door handle, confusion flooding her face. Victor's expression changed, the warm mask shattering to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. His hand moved toward his jacket, toward a gun, Chen would later confirm. 16 FBI agents materialized from every direction, weapons drawn, voices overlapping. "FBI! Get down! Hands up!" Victor tried to run. He made it maybe 5 feet before 3 agents tackled him, driving him face first into the cracked asphalt, arms wrenched behind his back for handcuffs. And Lily screamed, not a scream of fear, a scream of confusion and betrayal. She spun around, saw the FBI agents, saw the guns, saw her father standing near the van with Ghost, and her face crumpled. "Dad, what are you doing? He's my agent. We're going to New York." Axel started forward, but Agent Chen reached Lily first. She holstered her weapon, approached with her hands visible, her voice gentle. "Lily, my name is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. I need you to listen to me very carefully. The man you know as Dylan, the man who calls himself a modeling scout. His real name is Viktor Sokolov. He's not a modeling agent. He's a human trafficker. There is no photo shoot in New York. There is no modeling agency. If you'd gotten in that car, you would have been taken to a warehouse 90 miles from here, where 23 other girls are being held prisoner." Lily shook her head violently, tears starting. No, that's not true. He showed me his portfolio. He showed me the agency website. He gave me a contract. All fake, Chen said gently. "Lily, I need you to look at something." She pulled out her phone, showed Lily a photo. The warehouse in Bakersfield. Then another photo. Victor's real face, not smiling, from an FBI watch list. Then another. A wall of missing person posters. 11 girls, ages 13 to 17. These are 11 girls who were reported missing over the past 8 years. All of them were last seen with a man who called himself a modeling scout. All of them disappeared. We believe Victor recruited all of them. Lily stared at the photos. Her breathing was coming fast, too fast. "But he said, he promised." "He lied, honey," Chen said. "Everything he told you was designed to make you trust him, to make you want to get in that car. And it almost worked." Across the parking lot, Victor was being shoved into the back of an FBI vehicle. He was shouting, trying to play innocent. "This is a misunderstanding. I'm a legitimate talent scout. That girl's father is harassing me because he doesn't want her to succeed." Ghost walked over to the vehicle, leaned in so Victor could see his face. Viktor Sokolov, also known as Dylan Hartwell, also known as Marcus Petrov, former photographer, recruited by the Zakharov trafficking network in 2003. 63 confirmed victims over 12 years. Your cloud storage had everything. Communications with handlers, financial records, travel documents. You're done. Victor's face went blank, the reality settling in. No more mask. Just a predator caught at last. But the story was only beginning to unfold. While the FBI secured Victor at the Belmont Theater, 90 miles south, 40 more federal agents were storming a warehouse in Bakersfield's industrial district. They breached at exactly 1 p.m., synchronized to the second with the arrest in Fresno. What they found inside would make national news within hours. 23 girls, ages 13 to 19, locked in rooms that had been converted into cells, mattresses on concrete floors, one bathroom shared among them all, buckets for when the bathroom was occupied. Some had been there for 2 weeks, some for 14 months. They were malnourished, terrified, traumatized beyond measure. 4 handlers were arrested on site. 3 surrendered immediately when they saw the tactical teams. 1 grabbed a weapon and was shot by SWAT, non-fatal, taken into custody. The girls were brought out, one by one, wrapped in blankets, blinking in the sunlight they hadn't seen in days or weeks or months. Medics triaged them immediately. Dehydration, malnutrition, untreated infections, evidence of physical and sexual assault. Some were sobbing. Some were completely silent, in shock. One girl, 17, from Washington State, saw the FBI agents and whispered, "Is this real? Are you really here?" "We're really here," the agent told her. "You're safe now. You're going home." Back in Fresno, as Victor was being transported to the federal building for processing, Tech was still digging through the digital evidence. And what he found made Ghost call Agent Chen immediately. "Chen, we've got something else." Victor's financial records show payments coming from a larger network, the Zakharov organization. They've been operating for over 15 years. Victor was just one of 15 recruiters. And Chen, we found something in his documents about previous operations. What kind of previous operations? Insurance fraud combined with trafficking. He did this before, with a different victim, 9 years ago. Agent Chen went very still. 9 years ago. Where? Fresno. Victim was 16 years old. Name: Amy Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell. The waitress who'd started all of this by speaking up about Lily had lost her sister to this exact man, this exact network, 9 years earlier. And she'd recognized the pattern because she'd seen it destroy her family once before. Chen drove to the Highway 99 diner at 2:30 p.m. Sarah was working her shift, moving on autopilot, jumping every time her phone buzzed, desperate for news about Lily but terrified to hope. When Agent Chen walked through the door in her FBI jacket, Sarah dropped the coffee pot she'd been holding. It shattered on the floor, but she didn't move. Is Lily? She's safe, Chen said immediately. We intercepted Victor at 12:59 p.m. Lily is currently with her father and a crisis counselor. She's scared, confused, and angry, but she's safe. You saved her life. Sarah's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the nearest booth, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking with sobs that had been building for 8 weeks. Chen sat across from her. Sarah, I need to tell you something. When we arrested Victor and searched his records, we found files on his previous victims. One of those files was labeled Amy Mitchell, 2015. Victor Sokolov was the man who trafficked your sister. Sarah looked up, tears streaming. What? The modeling scout who approached Amy 9 years ago. That was Victor, using a different name, different cover story, but same methods. Your sister was one of his earlier victims, before he'd refined his operation. Sarah, when you recognized the pattern with Lily, when you spoke up despite being terrified, you didn't just save one girl. You solved your sister's case. And you triggered the collapse of a network that's been operating for 15 years. Sarah couldn't speak. She just stared, processing. Because of you, Chen continued, we arrested Victor and 4 handlers. We rescued 23 girls from a warehouse. We identified 15 other recruiters who are being arrested right now in coordinated raids across 6 states. We've recovered financial records that implicate buyers and transporters. Sarah, you brought down an organization that's trafficked over 300 girls. The scale of what you've done. Most people will never fully understand it. But Amy, Sarah whispered. Amy's still gone. Amy's still gone, Chen agreed gently. And I'm so sorry. But because of you, 47 other families didn't have to lose their daughters. 23 girls who were prisoners this morning are free tonight. 11 families who've been searching for missing daughters are getting calls right now telling them we found them. That's Amy's legacy, Sarah. That's what came from her story. You made sure it meant something. Sarah wiped her eyes, picked up Amy's photo from her apron pocket where she always kept it. What happens now? Now Victor faces federal charges. He's looking at life without parole, trafficking, kidnapping, conspiracy, RICO violations. The handlers, the recruiters, the financiers, all going down. And the girls start healing. It'll take time, therapy, support, but they're alive to do that healing because you paid attention. Around town, as word spread about the arrests and the rescue, people started coming forward. Neighbors who'd seen things, teachers who'd noticed warning signs, store clerks who'd witnessed interactions. Each one carried the same guilt. I saw something, but I didn't say anything. A woman named Patricia Delgado, 53, who lived 2 houses down from the coffee shop where Lily had been meeting Victor. She came to the FBI field office at 3 p.m., hands shaking. I saw them, she told the agent who interviewed her. That man and the teenage girl. I saw them meeting in the coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday for weeks. I noticed because he was older, and she was so young, and the way he touched her shoulder, positioned her for photos. It made me uncomfortable. But I told myself it wasn't my business. That maybe he was her uncle, or her photography teacher. I convinced myself there was an innocent explanation, because I didn't want to get involved. She looked down at her hands. If someone had gotten hurt because I stayed silent, I would never have forgiven myself. I should have called someone. I should have asked questions. But I was scared of being wrong, of causing trouble for an innocent person. A teacher at Lily's school, Michael Voss, 41, came forward with similar testimony. Lily's behavior changed about 8 weeks ago. She stopped participating in class, started dressing differently, was constantly on her phone. I asked her once if everything was okay, and she brushed me off, said everything was great, that something exciting was happening soon. I marked it in my notes, but I didn't follow up. I should have called her father. I should have involved the counselor, but she seemed happy, and I had 30 other students to worry about, and I let it slide. His voice broke. I've been teaching for 19 years. I know the warning signs of grooming, of abuse. They literally trained us on it. And I saw those signs in Lily, and I did nothing because it was easier to believe everything was fine. A third witness, a clerk at the mall where Victor first approached Lily, remembered the interaction. Jennifer Song, 27, working at the food court information booth. I saw him approach her, she testified. She was sitting alone, eating lunch, and he walked up, started talking to her. She looked surprised, but flattered. He showed her something on his tablet. I assumed a portfolio. They talked for maybe 10 minutes. Then he gave her his card and left. She sat there staring at the card, smiling. Jennifer's hands twisted together. After I saw the news today, I remembered something. About 20 minutes before he approached that girl, I saw him watching the food court, just standing near the entrance, scanning. And I noticed because it was deliberate. He was looking at girls, specifically teenage girls. When he saw that blonde girl sitting alone, he watched her for a few minutes, then approached. It was hunting behavior. I recognized it as weird at the time, but I didn't report it to mall security. I just moved on with my day. These testimonies built a picture of a predator who operated in plain sight, confident that people would stay silent even when they were uncomfortable, even when something felt wrong. And they also built a picture of a system that failed, not because people were evil, but because they were scared of being wrong, scared of interfering, conditioned to mind their own business. But Tech's continued investigation revealed something even more disturbing. In Victor's financial records, buried in a folder marked 2015 Operations, was a document. An insurance policy on Amy Mitchell, taken out 6 weeks before her disappearance, listing Viktor Sokolov, under a different name, as the beneficiary. The policy amount, $180,000. Claimed 2 months after Amy's body was found, cause of death listed as accidental overdose. He was doing double revenue, Ghost explained to the assembled FBI agents and bikers. Trafficking the girls for sale, but also insuring some of them, the ones he knew wouldn't survive long in the network. Amy Mitchell paid out $180,000 in insurance fraud on top of whatever he made from trafficking her. He'd done it before, too. We found 3 other cases, same pattern. Take out a policy, make the girl disappear into trafficking, wait for them to die, claim the payout. Axel, listening to this, felt rage so pure and cold it was almost calming. Viktor Sokolov hadn't just destroyed lives. He'd profited from their deaths, had bet on their destruction, had made their suffering a financial strategy. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long can we put him away for?" Agent Chen pulled up the charging documents. Federal charges include 47 counts of human trafficking of a minor, 23 counts of kidnapping, 18 counts of sexual assault of a minor, conspiracy to commit trafficking, RICO violations, wire fraud, insurance fraud, 3 counts of accessory to murder, Amy Mitchell, and 2 other victims who died in similar circumstances. He's looking at 12 consecutive life sentences minimum, no possibility of parole. Federal Supermax prison. He'll never see daylight again. At 4 p.m., Victor was processed at the federal building. They read him his rights. They photographed him, fingerprinted him, took DNA samples. He sat in an interrogation room, still trying to maintain his innocence, still playing the role of wronged businessman. "I want a lawyer," he said. "I haven't done anything illegal. I'm a talent scout. That's not a crime." Ghost sat across from him, former FBI agent who knew exactly how to dismantle a denial. He placed Victor's own phone on the table between them. "This is your phone, Victor. Your cloud storage. We have 12 folders with 12 different girls' names. We have text messages coordinating deliveries with handlers. We have financial records showing payments from the Zakharov network. We have your communications discussing which girls are ready for shipment. We have photographs you took that show progression of grooming over weeks. We have the warehouse location saved in your maps. We have everything." Victor's face went blank. "And that's just the trafficking charges," Ghost continued. "We also have insurance policies you took out on 4 victims who later died, including Amy Mitchell. So add insurance fraud and accessory to murder to your list. You're done, Victor. The only question now is whether you cooperate and give us the buyers, or whether you go down alone and maximize your sentence." Victor leaned back, and for the first time, the mask cracked completely. "I want a lawyer. You'll get one. But know this, we don't need you to flip. We have your entire network in your phone. We're arresting buyers tonight. You're just one piece, and we've already got the whole puzzle. The only thing cooperation gets you is maybe, a cell that's not in complete isolation for the rest of your life." At 4:30 p.m., the bail hearing was held. Federal prosecutor requested no bail, calling Victor an extreme flight risk, a foreign national with resources and connections to organized crime, and a demonstrated history of targeting vulnerable children. The judge looked at the charging documents, looked at Victor in his orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, and said, "Bail denied. Defendant to be held in federal custody pending trial." Victor would never walk free again. But across Fresno, in a small house that Axel had driven Lily to, his daughter was sitting on a couch with a crisis counselor, trying to process that the dream she'd believed in was a nightmare she'd barely escaped. The counselor, Dr. Emily Warren, was 42, had spent 15 years helping trafficking survivors rebuild their sense of reality and trust. She spoke gently. "Lily, what happened to you is called grooming. It's a psychological manipulation technique that traffickers use to gain trust and create obligation. None of this was your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Victor is a professional predator who's been doing this for 20 years. He knew exactly what to say, exactly what to promise, exactly how to make you feel special and seen." "But I believed him," Lily whispered. "I was going to get in his car. I was going to go with him." "Because he was good at his job," Dr. Warren said. "Lily, we rescued 23 other girls today. Every single one of them believed him too. Or believed their recruiter. You're not naive or stupid for falling for it. You're human. And you're alive because someone paid attention and cared enough to speak up." "The waitress," Lily said. "My dad told me. She's the one who saw the pattern. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. And yes, she saved your life. She also lost her sister to Victor 9 years ago. She recognized what was happening to you because it happened to her family." Lily started crying. Not the confused, angry tears from earlier. Deeper tears. The kind that came from understanding how close she'd come to vanishing. Outside, Axel sat on the porch steps, head in his hands, Ghost sitting beside him in silence. Finally, Axel spoke. "I taught her self-defense. I gave her pepper spray. I tracked her phone. I did everything I could think of to keep her safe from physical danger. But I never thought about this. I never imagined someone could just walk up and offer her dreams and steal her that way." "That's what they count on," Ghost said. "Parents prepare kids for strangers in vans, for obvious danger. They don't prepare them for friendly faces offering opportunities. That's the gap predators exploit." "She's safe now," Axel said. "Because of Sarah. A woman I'd never met, working minimum wage, raising 2 kids alone, took the time to pay attention and had the courage to tell me. How do I even begin to thank someone for that?" "You start by making sure she knows she did the right thing," Ghost said. "And then you make sure this story gets told so that other people learn to watch for the signs too." At 5 p.m., news vans started arriving at the FBI building. Agent Chen held a press conference, carefully worded to protect the victims' identities, but reveal the scope of what had been stopped. Today, the FBI, in coordination with local law enforcement and community members, successfully disrupted a major human trafficking network operating across 6 western states. We arrested 15 recruiters, 4 handlers, 2 transporters, and recovered 23 victims ranging in age from 13 to 19. We also prevented the trafficking of 11 additional minors who were in active grooming situations. This investigation is ongoing, and we expect additional arrests in the coming weeks." A reporter shouted a question. "How was this network discovered?" Chen paused, chose her words carefully. "A civilian witnessed grooming behavior targeting a local teenager and reported it to the girl's family. That single report triggered an investigation that uncovered a network responsible for over 300 victims over 15 years. I cannot overstate the importance of paying attention, of trusting your instincts when something feels wrong, and of speaking up even when you're not certain. This case was solved because one person cared enough to say something." That night, at the Hells Angels clubhouse, 180 men gathered again. But this time, it wasn't to plan an intervention. It was to bear witness to what they'd helped stop. Agent Chen presented the full scope. 47 girls saved, including 23 from the warehouse, 11 from active grooming situations, and 13 from other recruiters' operations that were uncovered through Victor's network connections. 51 total arrests. $23 million in assets seized from the trafficking organization. "You want to know what you did today?" Chen said. "You restored 47 families. You ended careers of predators who thought they were untouchable. You sent a message that communities can fight back, that people are watching. That's not vigilante justice. That's civic responsibility backed by federal authority. That's what it looks like when people work together to protect children." Reaper stood. It started with Sarah Mitchell, a waitress who'd already lost her sister to this evil, who could have stayed quiet out of fear, who instead trusted her gut and her memory. "Brothers, I move that we honor her properly, and I move that we turn this into something permanent, a program to educate people on trafficking signs, to train employees in public-facing businesses to recognize grooming behaviors." Sarah's sister Amy died because nobody knew what to look for. Lily's alive because Sarah did. Let's make sure more people can recognize what Sarah saw. The vote was unanimous. They would call it Amy's Voice, a trafficking awareness program funded by the club, taught in schools and businesses, featuring Sarah and Lily, when she was ready, telling their story. But first, they needed to thank the woman who'd started it all. The next morning, Sarah Mitchell arrived at the Highway 99 diner for her 6 a.m. shift to find something unexpected in the parking lot. 20 motorcycles, arranged in 2 neat rows, their chrome gleaming in the early light. And standing near the entrance, Axel Reeves, holding a cup of coffee and waiting. Sarah stopped walking, her heart hammering. She'd spent all night replaying the past 24 hours. The arrest, Agent Chen's visit, the news coverage showing 23 girls being rescued. She'd cried herself to sleep holding Amy's photo, feeling grief and relief tangled so tightly she couldn't separate them. "Mr. Reeves," she said quietly. "Is Lily—" "She's safe. She's home. She's scared and confused and angry, but she's home." Axel held out the coffee. "This is for you. And I need to say something." Sarah took the coffee with shaking hands. "You saved my daughter's life," Axel said, his voice rough with emotion. "You saw something that made you uncomfortable. And instead of looking away like dozens of other people did, you spoke up. You documented evidence for 8 weeks. You came to me even though you were terrified I wouldn't believe you, even though you thought it might cost you your job, even though you had every reason to protect yourself and your kids first. You did all of that because you knew what staying silent cost. And because of you, Lily's here instead of in that warehouse. 47 girls are safe. A network that destroyed hundreds of lives is finished." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "The club voted unanimously last night. We're paying off your debts, credit cards, medical bills, everything. Agent Chen told us it was around $18,000. Consider it handled." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Reeves, I can't accept—" "You can, and you will," Axel said firmly. "We're also setting up college funds for your kids. 50,000 each for Emma and Tyler. And we have a job offer. The club runs a security company. Completely legitimate, corporate contracts, nothing illegal. We need an office manager. 55,000 a year, full benefits, normal hours so you can be home with your kids. If you want it, it's yours." Sarah couldn't speak. She just stood there, tears streaming, holding Amy's cross necklace. A van pulled up, and Lily got out. She was wearing regular clothes now, jeans and a sweatshirt, her face scrubbed clean of the makeup, looking 14 again instead of 17. She walked over slowly, uncertainly. "Ms. Mitchell? I'm Lily. My dad told me what you did." Agent Chen explained everything. About your sister. About how you recognized the pattern. About how you saved me. Her voice cracked. "I thought you were ruining my dream. But you were saving my life. Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you." Sarah pulled Lily into a hug. This girl who looked so much like Amy, who'd come so close to the same fate. "You're welcome, sweetheart. And I'm so glad you're okay." "Agent Chen said I have to do therapy," Lily said, pulling back. 3 times a week. She said it's going to take time to trust people again, to not feel stupid for believing Victor." "You're not stupid," Sarah said firmly. "You're human, and you're going to heal. It takes time, but you will." Over the next week, concrete plans took shape. Judge, the club's lawyer, filed a restraining order ensuring Victor could never contact Lily or her family, though with him in federal custody, it was mostly symbolic. The order would remain in effect for life. Doc coordinated with trauma specialists. Lily began therapy with Dr. Warren 3 times weekly. The sessions were hard, processing betrayal, understanding manipulation tactics, rebuilding her sense of judgment and trust. But slowly, session by session, she started to understand that being targeted by a professional predator didn't make her weak or naive. Tech helped Lily disconnect from all the social media accounts Victor had encouraged her to build, the ones where she'd been posting modeling photos, building a presence he could have used to find other girls. Her Instagram, TikTok, everything went dark. She needed space from the performance of it all. Tracker, who had teenage daughters himself, took Lily and Axel to self-defense classes specifically designed for trafficking awareness, not just physical defense, but psychological defense. How to recognize grooming behaviors, how to verify legitimacy of opportunities, how to trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And Sarah accepted the job. Her last shift at the Highway 99 diner was the following Friday. Her regular customers threw her a surprise party, awkward and sweet, because they'd all seen the news by then and understood what she'd done. The owner gave her a plaque that read, "To Sarah Mitchell, who proved that paying attention can change everything." 2 weeks after the rescue, Sarah brought Emma and Tyler to meet Lily at the clubhouse. It was a Saturday afternoon, the place full of families, brothers' wives, kids playing in the yard, a barbecue going, normalcy and safety wrapped around everything. Emma, 8 years old, walked straight up to Lily and said with a child's directness, "My mom says you're really brave. She says a bad man tried to hurt you, but she helped stop him." Lily knelt down to Emma's level. "Your mom is the brave one. She saw something was wrong, and she told my dad even though she was scared. She's a hero." Emma considered this, then hugged Lily fiercely. "I'm glad you're okay." That night, after Sarah took her kids home, Axel found Lily on the clubhouse porch, staring at the stars. He sat beside her in silence for a while before she spoke. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I was mad at you for months. I thought you were too controlling, too overprotective, too stuck in your biker world to understand that I could be something more than Reaper's daughter. That's part of why I kept the meetings with Victor secret. I wanted to prove I could make my own decisions, have my own life." She turned to look at him, tears on her face. "But you were trying to protect me. And I thought protection meant you didn't trust me. I'm sorry." Axel pulled her close. "I'm sorry too. I was so focused on physical dangers, teaching you to fight, giving you pepper spray, tracking your phone, that I never talked to you about psychological dangers, about people who manipulate, who groom, who use trust as a weapon. That's on me. Agent Chen says Victor has been doing this for 20 years, that he's probably trafficked over 60 girls. How was I supposed to recognize something that's sophisticated?" "You weren't," Axel said gently. "That's why communities matter. That's why people paying attention matters. Sarah saw what you couldn't see because she'd lost Amy to the same tactics. That's not your failure, baby. That's exactly why we need each other." 3 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon, Amy's Voice held its first school presentation. 200 students packed the high school auditorium, Lily's school, where she'd returned after weeks of therapy and careful reintegration. Sarah stood at the microphone, Lily beside her, Agent Chen in the audience for support. The poster behind them showed 2 photos. Amy Mitchell at 16, smiling and alive, and below it, statistics. Over 300,000 children at risk of trafficking in the United States every year. Traffickers targeting children as young as 12. Average age of entry into trafficking, 13 to 14 years old. "My name is Sarah Mitchell," she began, her voice steady now, strengthened by 3 months of telling this story, of turning trauma into purpose. "9 years ago, my sister Amy was approached by a man at the mall who told her she could be a model. He was friendly, professional, showed her a portfolio of other girls he'd discovered. Over 9 weeks, he groomed her with gifts, attention, and promises of a future in New York. She got on a plane in June 2015. We found her body 3 years later in Las Vegas. She was 19 years old." The auditorium was completely silent. 3 months ago, I watched history repeat itself. I'm a waitress at a truck stop diner, and I saw a teenage girl meeting the same kind of man, seeing the same pattern unfold. Gifts, secret meetings, portfolio photo shoots in public, a one-way plane ticket, and I had a choice: stay silent and hope I was wrong, or speak up and risk being the person who ruined an innocent opportunity. She looked at Lily, who stepped forward. "I'm that teenage girl," Lily said, her voice shaking but clear. 3 months ago, I thought I was going to be a model. A man I knew as Dylan told me I was special, that I had potential, that agencies in New York wanted me. He gave me expensive gifts, a phone, clothes, professional photos. He made me feel seen, special, like I was more than just another kid. And I believed every single word. She pulled out her phone, showed the audience photos of herself from 3 months ago. Designer clothes, professional makeup, posing like a model. "This is what I looked like the day I was supposed to get on that plane. I thought I looked sophisticated, mature, ready for my big break. What I actually looked like was a grooming victim." A ripple went through the crowd, students looking at each other, recognition dawning. Viktor Sokolov, Dylan's real name, had trafficked 63 girls before me. Some are still missing. Some are dead, like Sarah's sister Amy. I was supposed to be number 64. But I'm standing here today because Sarah Mitchell paid attention. She recognized warning signs that I couldn't see because I was inside the manipulation, and she spoke up even though she was terrified. Lily's voice strengthened. How many of you have Instagram? About 75% of hands went up. How many have been DM'd by someone claiming to be a scout, an agent, or a photographer offering opportunities? At least 50 hands stayed up. That's how it starts. They find you on social media, or at the mall, or at a coffee shop. They compliment you. They make you feel special. They offer something you want: fame, money, escape, validation. And slowly, over weeks, they isolate you from your support system. They create secrets. They build obligation with gifts. They convince you that people who love you just don't understand. She looked directly at the students. I thought my dad was controlling and didn't trust me. Victor told me my parents couldn't understand the industry. He told me real models don't need their parents' permission. He told me I was mature enough to make my own decisions. Every single thing he said was designed to separate me from the people who could protect me. Sarah stepped forward again. After Victor's arrest, 23 girls were rescued from a warehouse 90 miles from here. Some had been there 2 weeks, some over a year. 11 more girls who were being groomed were identified and protected. In total, 47 girls were saved because I reported what I saw. But you know what haunts me? All the people who saw something and stayed silent. She pulled up witness testimonies on the screen behind her. A neighbor saw Victor meeting Lily repeatedly, made her uncomfortable, but she didn't want to interfere. A teacher noticed Lily's behavior changes but didn't follow up. A mall clerk saw Victor watching teenage girls, recognized it as hunting behavior, but didn't report it to security. Every single one of them saw pieces of what was happening, and every single one of them stayed quiet because they didn't want to be wrong, didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to get involved. Sarah's voice hardened. My sister died because nobody spoke up. 63 other girls were trafficked because people saw signs and stayed silent. Lily's alive because I refused to be another bystander. So I'm asking you, if you see something that makes you uncomfortable, if your friend starts acting different after meeting someone online, if someone offers you opportunities that sound too good to be true, what are you going to do? A girl in the third row raised her hand. But what if you're wrong? What if you ruin someone's real opportunity? Then you were wrong with good intentions, Sarah said. But let me ask you this. Would you rather risk embarrassment or risk letting your friend disappear? Because those are your only two options when you see grooming behavior. Speaking up might be awkward. Staying silent can be fatal. Agent Chen stood up, joined them on stage. After Victor's arrest, we identified his pattern across 8 years and 6 states. 11 confirmed missing girls, all approached the same way. Know what they had in common? In every single case, at least one person saw something concerning but didn't report it. A friend who thought the attention seemed weird. A parent who had a bad feeling but didn't want to seem paranoid. A teacher who noticed changes but didn't want to overstep. Every single time, silence enabled the trafficking. She looked at the students. You're not responsible for protecting your friends from professional predators, but you are responsible for speaking up when your instincts tell you something's wrong. Tell a parent. Tell a teacher. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. That number is on every poster in this school now. Anonymous tips save lives. The presentation ended with statistics that hit hard. Since Amy's voice began 3 months earlier, they'd reached 5,000 students across Northern California. 37 potential trafficking situations had been identified and reported based on student tips. 4 more recruiters had been arrested. The program was expanding to Oregon and Nevada. One person speaking up saved 47 lives, Lily said in closing. Imagine what happens when thousands of people learn to recognize the signs, when entire communities refuse to stay silent. That's how we end trafficking, not by being perfect, but by paying attention and caring enough to say something. After the presentation, students lined up to talk to Sarah and Lily. Several girls quietly admitted they'd been contacted by scouts online. 2 boys said their sisters had been in situations that sounded similar. A teacher approached Sarah with tears in her eyes. "I had a student last year who I thought might be in danger, but I convinced myself I was overreacting. After hearing this, I'm never staying silent again." 6 months after that terrible Friday, when Lily almost got in Victor's car, life had found a new rhythm. Lily returned to school full-time. She'd made honor roll every semester since the rescue. She joined student council, started volunteering at a local non-profit that helped trafficking survivors, and became the face of Amy's voice alongside Sarah. The modeling dreams were gone, replaced by something deeper, a purpose born from almost becoming a statistic. Sarah thrived in her new role managing the club's security company. Emma and Tyler's college funds grew steadily. She'd moved into a better apartment, 3 bedrooms, safe neighborhood, close to good schools. And every morning, she still wore Amy's cross necklace. But now it felt less like carrying grief, and more like carrying forward a legacy. The club had raised $42,000 from chapters across the state, funding Amy's voice expansion. The program reached 10,000 students in its first 6 months. 3 school districts made it mandatory curriculum. Viktor Sokolov went to trial 6 months after his arrest. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts, 47 counts of human trafficking, 23 counts of kidnapping, 18 counts of sexual assault, conspiracy, RICO violations, insurance fraud, accessory to murder. The judge sentenced him to 12 consecutive life terms in federal supermax prison, with no possibility of parole. At the sentencing, the judge said something that made national news. "Mr. Sokolov, you preyed on children's dreams and families' trust. You operated in plain sight because you counted on people staying silent. But one woman refused. Because of Sarah Mitchell's courage, this courtroom exists. Because of her attention and action, 47 families have their daughters. You will spend the rest of your life in a cell, and every single day you should remember. You were stopped by a waitress who cared more about protecting a stranger's child than about protecting herself from being wrong. That's the humanity you never possessed, and never will." One evening, a year after the rescue, Axel brought Lily to the diner, where Sarah now occasionally helped out on weekends, staying connected to the place where everything changed. They sat in the same booth where Victor had groomed Lily, reclaiming it. "I never thanked you properly," Lily said, sliding something across the table to Sarah. A framed photo. Lily at her high school graduation, cap and gown, smiling genuinely. "This happens in 2 years. I get to walk across that stage and accept my diploma because you spoke up. I get to have a future because you refused to stay silent." Sarah took the photo, tears in her eyes. "Your sister Amy would be so proud of you." "No," Lily said gently. "Amy would be proud of you. You turned your tragedy into protection for others. You made sure her story had meaning. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen." Sarah looked at the photo, then at Lily, then at Axel. This family that had been hours away from destruction, now whole and healing. And she thought about Amy, about all the girls who didn't get rescued, about the 47 who did. "I just paid attention," she said quietly. "That's exactly the point," Axel said. "Paying attention is everything." This story isn't really about bikers or badges or dramatic rescues, though those things happened. It's about something simpler and harder. Seeing something wrong and choosing to speak. Sarah Mitchell didn't have special training. She wasn't a law enforcement officer, or a social worker, or an expert. She was a single mother, working double shifts, exhausted and barely making ends meet, who could have looked away from something uncomfortable. But she'd already lost one person to silence. She'd already lived through the nightmare of wondering if speaking up earlier could have saved Amy. So when she saw the same nightmare beginning to unfold, she made a different choice. She documented what she saw. She gathered evidence. And when the moment came, when Lily's father walked into her diner on a Friday morning, she took a breath and spoke, even though her voice shook. That's the part that matters. Not that she was certain, she wasn't. Not that she was brave, she was terrified. Not that it was easy. It nearly broke her to relive Amy's story. But she spoke up anyway, because staying silent would have broken her more. In the year following Victor's arrest, the FBI continued dismantling his network. 15 recruiters like him, operating across 6 states, all arrested. The Zakharov organization, the larger trafficking network, was exposed. 51 total arrests. Over 200 victims identified through their records, with investigations ongoing to find survivors and bring them home. And it all started because a waitress paid attention. There are lilies everywhere. Beautiful girls being told they're special, being groomed with gifts and promises, being isolated from their families, being prepared for sale. There are victors everywhere, too. Recruiters who look professional and friendly, who operate in coffee shops and malls, who count on people staying silent when they notice something wrong. But there can also be Sarahs everywhere. You don't need a motorcycle club. You don't need an FBI badge. You don't need special training or resources or connections. You just need to notice when something feels wrong, and to care enough to say something even when you're scared of being mistaken. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever thought you're just one person who can't make a difference, Sarah's story proves otherwise. One waitress, one conversation, 47 lives. Pay attention to the teenager who suddenly has expensive gifts from someone they won't name. To the child who's being secretive about who they're meeting. To the friend who's excited about an opportunity that requires secrecy. To the pattern of isolation, obligation, and too good to be true promises. And when you see those signs, speak up. Tell a parent. Tell a teacher. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-373-7888. Report what you see, even if you're not sure, even if you might be wrong. Because the cost of speaking up is potential embarrassment. The cost of staying silent is a life. Lily Reeves is 20 years old now. She's studying psychology in college, planning to work with trafficking survivors. She still does presentations with Amy's Voice, which has now reached over 30,000 students across 7 states. She tells every audience the same thing. I'm alive because someone cared enough to speak when she wasn't sure. You can be that person too. Sarah Mitchell's kids, Emma and Tyler, are growing up knowing their mother is a hero, not because she did something spectacular, but because she did something hard. She saw evil and didn't look away. That's the kind of courage that reshapes futures. And Axel Reeves, the terrifying biker with the president's patch, learned that protection isn't just about teaching your daughter to fight. It's about building a community that watches out for each other's children, that refuses to stay silent when something's wrong, that understands the most dangerous predators don't break down doors. They knock politely and offer dreams. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below if you believe paying attention can change lives. Tell us about the person who protected you, or about the time you spoke up when it was hard. Because there are more Sarahs needed. More people willing to risk being wrong in order to prevent tragedy. More communities refusing to let predators operate in silence. You could be next. The teenager at your local coffee shop, meeting an older man who gives her gifts. The child in your neighborhood whose behavior changed after meeting someone online. The friend who's suddenly defensive and secretive about a new opportunity. You might notice something that no one else sees. You might have the information that changes everything. Will you stay silent, or will you speak? Sarah Mitchell chose to speak, even though her voice shook, even though she'd already lost her sister to the same evil, even though she had every reason to protect herself first. And because of that choice, 47 families didn't have to live through the nightmare she'd already survived. That's what changed. That's what mattered. That's what this story is really about. One person. One moment of courage. One life saved that became 47. The Hells Angels didn't rescue Lily through violence or intimidation. They rescued her through discipline, coordination with law enforcement, and the simple act of believing a waitress who came to them with a terrible truth. They proved that protection doesn't require being scary. It requires being present, being willing to act, and being smart enough to work within the system to stop evil. And Sarah proved that you don't need a patch or a badge to be a hero. You just need to pay attention, trust your instincts, and speak up even when it would be easier to stay quiet. There are children right now being groomed by predators who look nothing like monsters. They look like friendly professionals offering opportunities. They operate in public, confident that everyone around them will mind their own business. Be the person who doesn't mind their own business when a child's safety is at stake. Be Sarah. Be the one who pays attention. Because somewhere, right now, there's a 14-year-old girl accepting gifts from a man who's grooming her for sale. And there's someone near her, a waitress, a teacher, a neighbor, a stranger, who might notice something wrong. Will that person speak up? That answer will determine if that girl becomes another statistic or if she becomes another life saved. Pay attention. Trust your instincts. Speak up. That's how we end this. Not through dramatic rescues, but through a million small acts of courage by ordinary people who refuse to stay silent. Sarah wore Amy's cross every day for 9 years, carrying the weight of a sister lost to trafficking. Today, she gave that necklace to Lily Reeves, the girl who became like a second sister, the one who survived because Sarah refused to let history repeat. Amy would want you to have this, Sarah told her. You're the sister she'd want to save. Lily wears it now, a reminder that her life was given back to her by someone else's courage. And every time she speaks to students, every time she helps identify a potential trafficking situation, she's honoring both Amy's memory and Sarah's bravery. That's the legacy. That's what refusing to stay silent creates. Not just one life saved, but a ripple of protection spreading outward, changing everything it touches. Subscribe for more true stories that restore your faith in humanity. Share this with someone who needs to know they can make a difference. Comment: I'll speak up if you commit to paying attention and protecting the vulnerable. Because the next rescue might start with you. The next Sarah might be reading this right now. And the next life saved might be because someone chose courage over comfort. This is what the Gentle Bikers stand for. Protection without aggression. Justice without vengeance. Courage that looks like an ordinary person doing an extraordinary thing. Thank you for listening to Lily and Sarah's story. Now go be part of the next one.